Thank you for organizing this community call, Marcus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. As, yeah, go on.
It's like in school with show and tell. This is my son in kindergarten.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do many meetups nowadays, but before, the pandemic, I used to do, physical meetups, and show and tells was always the best one. I was doing the Go meetups in Stockholm, and every month we would have, like, there's always someone working on something cool, and
yeah,
it's just,
I agree.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to showcase it.
Showcasing, but it will also help the developers to understand what they are doing wrong, how they can improve. It's really good way of.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, this is extremely helpful for the Grafana team, but I mean, hopefully it's also, I mean, my hope is that it's also useful for people here. Like, I assume that most of you are plugin authors yourselves, and I'm hoping that we can sort of share some best practices, some experiences. I mean, like, if you're struggling with something, sort of things like that. And so we can hopefully learn from each other as well. I think we're, I'm not sure about D. Cooper and Manan, but Manan. But I think all of you have written at least one plugin. So it will be really interesting to see what you've built. I mean, I've tested a few of yours when you're reviewing, but obviously not all of them. So really excited about that.
I have a new one for you to review. I just submitted yesterday.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I haven't gotten around to it yet, but
I struggled with it a lot because,
yeah,
as I said before, there is not a lot of information how to build it, and using all the legacy platform is not the best. You cannot change anything. You kind of want to move, for example, your configuration from legacy folder to something else, and it cannot bootstrap it anymore.
Yeah, and the app plugins is something that's, I've received questions from a lot of people on, like, how do I do app plugins? And it looks useful, but there's hardly any documentation for it. And I mean, I'm sure many of you know that a big reason why is because for 7.0, we managed to migrate the panel plugins and data source plugins to React. But unfortunately, we didn't make it with the app plugins. So it's pretty much been Angular. But we are making a lot of improvements on the React migration for app plugins. So I'm actually writing a tutorial now for the tutorials platform on how to write app plugins. As well as a template. So hopefully now in the coming future, you will be able to do a Grafana toolkit, create, and you will get like a template for app plugins. So that's the idea. But it will take a little longer as we're still working on figuring some things out. But yeah, I'm learning about it as I'm documenting it, to be honest. It's a lot of, small things.
Right, because you have this information how to create data source and the panels, and you have a lot of them in the repository, right, submitted by developers. For application, you have very limited amount, and most of them is outdated.
Yeah.
Submitted 2-3 years ago, but because there is no information how to do that properly.
Yeah, no, for sure. I wonder if, I think there's, let's see if I can, there's a few, let's see if I do like this. I think there's at least one proper app plugin using a React. Let's see if I go like that. Yeah, synthetic monitoring. This one is actually using the React platform. And it's our own. I don't know if you're familiar with the world ping, but it's this idea of health checks and making sure that your service is running and is you're able to access it from all over the world. So this is actually something that we're offering to our cloud users.
I'm not sure if it's just me, but I can only see the Google page.
Are you doing something?
Marcus, this is not real true because it still have a legacy folder.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, here. Is that better?
Yes, this synthetic monitoring app, it's actually has a legacy folder, and it's so hard to read it. It's like impossible. Because it's all was created for a specific use case. You cannot really try it without having a paid subscription at Grafana. Yeah, it's really hard to navigate. I mean, this is the one actually. It was pointed by sales team to me a long time ago. I look into it all the time, but it's really hard to. You have to follow the code to understand how to make it work.
I'm working with the team that's developing it and trying to create a something that's more understandable. Obviously, the team writing this has learned a lot on like during the development. So they know more about building out plugins right now. So this hopefully this will improve over the course of in the coming future. But yeah. Cool. I think we'll get started. I asked Dominic to join in on this call. He's coming. He just had an interview and is running a little late.
I'm already here, Marcus.
Oh, you are? Oh, awesome. I didn't see you come in there. Awesome.
Hello,
good
everyone.
to have you. So for those of you who don't already know Dominic, he's one of the developers in the Grafana team and has been working a lot on the plugin platform. So if there's any questions on the implementation and where we're going, Dominic is a great person to ask. And as well as
I'm gonna. Oh, sorry, Marcus.
Yeah, go on.
I'm just gonna say that unfortunately I only have 30 minutes.
Cool. Well, let's
able to join this meeting. So
if
any questions, then I'm probably gonna ask them either async or
sure
during the presentations.
But now people know who to spam, so that's awesome. But let's
I think
get
I already
started
met
right away.
Isa, by the way, right? Isa, is that okay? Yeah, so we already talked on public Slack. Great contributions.
Thanks. Awesome. So some things before we get started. Just like to say that this call is being recorded. We're going to publish this so that the people who didn't join still get to listen in. And if you have any questions, usually we just add them to the agenda. But I think that I think that we can keep it kind of casual. So. Pop your questions as you find them. So for those of you who don't know that we're doing this community call every month on the third Thursday at 3 p.m. UTC. We've had a few of these, but the themes are different for every occasion, and it's largely depends on what the community is up to. If you have anything to show, if we have something that we think that the community would like to know about, then we present that, and hopefully we'll be able to do a lot of demos. We also have another community call on the first Monday of every month for UX specific things. So the last call, I believe, we discussed query editors and how to design them. Some best practices, how to use the available space, what components to use, and so on. So I think there's a recording of that. But yeah, today we're going to do a show and tell, and we have a few presenters today who's going to show their plugins that they've been working on. And here's the agenda for today. So each one of these has 10 minutes to make sure that we all give everyone a shot in presenting. So we're going to see Mikhail demo the Redis application he's been building. Sriram is going to demo his Infinity plugins. We're really excited about seeing those. Jeremy has been working on his diagram panel, and he's going to show us his latest progress. And Isa is gonna show his new Pareto chat. Pareto? If you want to know how to pronounce it, just wait. Cool. That's all I have. I think I'm just gonna leave it up to Mikhail now and stop sharing so you can hopefully share something. If I can find the button. There.
Thank you. To share my second screen. Okay, everybody see it, right?
Yeah.
So my name is Mikhail. I work at Redis Labs, the home of Redis, and Redis is a great in-memory database. There is only one issue: there is no HTTP interface, so you cannot connect to that from the Grafana using normal data source. And which is why I was really excited when there was Grafana 7 out with backend support of backend data sources. So this is when we actually built Redis data source, and which became pretty popular, the way how I see that. I have one of my articles published how actually we use the Grafana API, get information about different plugins, how it was downloaded, and I have it on my graph here. Like this is the number of downloads for this plugin, and I have information for all the plugins actually collected from the API, and you can see it's like increased from 5K to more than 30K, and this is our download rate. But of course, with download rates, they have builds, so it's not very accurate, but still a good representation. So what I'm going to talk about today, we have this data source, which gets the data from Redis database. And recently we implemented streaming capabilities of Grafana, which was introduced by Ryan McKinley, right? He started working on that within Flux days, and then it became a part of Grafana. So what it actually does, I mean, everybody use Grafana when you refresh it, right? Every 5 seconds, 10 seconds. But what streaming capability do, it's actually allow you to stream the data as it comes. So for example, in our data source, we actually run info command, and there is a special flag streaming, which actually move it to special observable mode done by RxJS, and it has intervals and what is the capacity is how many values you want to store. So this is great, and you can stream the information about database itself, and it can actually use it for any of your real data like Redis time series or different data types. So then we actually moved one step forward. That we already started to monitor our application data, Redis database, and then there is already CLI, command line interface, which you can use to interact with the data. And I have this idea: if I have already Grafana, and I already have all my data sources configured in it, how I can interact with the data, manipulate it, or update the server configuration. So and then I created Redis CLI panel. But because I want to have more than one panel, we decided, and I saw these capabilities to have a special icon with special screens with root pages. So you can actually use a Grafana API, get all the data sources, verify with data sources as well in promises. For example, I do a special command called command, which actually give me all available commands. And based on that, I'm saying, oh, this is the modules which support in my Redis database, and it's online. And it's funny, Redis is red. So you kind of, if it's red, it's good. If it's not online and it's gray, but you see, you cannot retrieve list of commands, but still you see it's kind of configuration and special security enabled here. So when you click on it, you have all this kind of configuration done. And application, we already started to talk about application. It's great. You can pack your data sources, you can pack the dashboards inside it, and the panels. So I have 2 panels by default, Redis CLI and Redis Overview, which present different information about the Redis database. And with CLI, so I can run, I haven't seen any CLI with kind of tools in Grafana before, so I'm kind of excited about it. So it's run ping command, which actually say, oh, server is done, right? Then you can actually do set A, which is a normal string value. It has a hint the way you go. You can set, I want to set A as a 1, right? And then using another command, you can get the value of that. you can see all the keys in the database using the scan command. And this is your scan command to say, oh, there is a 1. If you run some kind of keys command, which is not recommended to use in production, there is a warning message. If you want to your Flash database, there is even a danger message, don't do that. And if you see, I created this key, and there is a number of keys. So because the data is streamed, you see my key is number 1, right? There is the ops per second happen all the time because they refresh the data with the streaming. You do flash DB, it's my test one, and you see the number of keys immediately dropped. There is a network, clients, and number of per second dropped as well. So this is, and it supports all kind of Redis modules. So we're using this help command, and it's pretty easy to do. If you edit it, it says there is a special type, there is a support of commands, time series commands, and CLI. The default command streaming is disabled. You don't want to stream it, and it's available as a special panel on the site when you enable the application. And it's great. So we have our data source, which can provide normal dashboards. Now we implement the streaming capabilities, and you can interact with the data having the streaming capabilities. I looked at Grafana source code at GitHub. There is only one data source which supports streaming. It's Loki, and there is nothing else. And there was a recent question at Slack, how I can do streaming in FluxDB, and it's really hard to figure out. But I'm really excited about the streaming capabilities in Grafana. And that's it. Any questions?
Cool. I love the CLI interface. As you said, I've never seen anything like it. But I love the idea of being able to interact with your data as well. I'm thinking, like, Dominic, would this be cool to have like in Explorer? It feels like something Explorer would be able to use a lot of, or is it?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know. This is great, but I'm not sure if this is an Explorer worthy thing.
Oh, maybe not.
Definitely, but definitely worth sharing with the Explore team. Yeah, I've never seen the CLI before neither, but as far as I understand, you're actually interacting with the Redis CLI under the hood, right? So I'm not sure how that would eventually apply to Explore. I don't know. There are probably some use cases that they might be interested in. So yeah.
No, it doesn't interact with Redis CLI. Sorry, it's run the same command using Redis client, which is a Go client, but and everything it's done by themselves. It just get this command from input, send the command, and get the back what it comes right properly.
Yeah. I mean that's what I meant when I said CLI. I mean you're basically issuing commands to Redis, right? So yeah, like controlling the actual instance with the commands that you have here.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean this is actually. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. And this is what we're going to talk about at ObservabilityCon. How you can actually take Grafana beyond observability to manipulate your data and do server configuration, which still be the next panels I'm going to create. Yeah, so go ahead.
Just to make things clear, on our radar, there is one thing that we want to explore in upcoming months, and that's kind of a panel that allows you to kind of a control panel, right? So that you hook into some kind of a controller or some kind of a backend, and the purpose of that panel would to kind of, I don't know, as simple as it is, to issue a command. Right? Yeah. So it's kind of similar to what you have here, but instead of having a text interface or text input interface or CLI interface, you would have kind of a control buttons that you control your devices or your backend with. So this is something that Ryan McKinley is gonna explore in upcoming months. So there's probably gonna be some panel available for that as well.
Cool. Just to keep time management here, if you have any more questions on the Redis app and the CLI panel, post them in the chat, and hopefully Mikhail can answer them as you have them. So for the next demo, I believe it's the Infinity demo. Are you
Yes,
able to? Yeah,
I can.
Cool. I think you can start sharing now.
Yes, you are seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll be demoing two panels today, two plugins. One is Grafana Infinity Data Source and the second one is Infinity Panel. Okay.
Love the colors.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah, same here.
okay, so this is Grafana Infinity Data Source. So what actually it does is it allows you to connect to any JSON APIs, any JSON backends, CSV backends, or any HTML URLs. You can directly connect into Grafana without needing different dedicated plugins. Right, the documentation for this plugin is available here. You can click and it will take you to here. So you can see the features, all the features available. So you can scrap CSVs, JSON, GraphQL, and many other things. Okay, so I'm just going to explain this in a bit. Okay. So this plugin is okay, Infinity. Okay, so the first feature is the CSV. So what we are going to do is just give the CSV file URL. So Grafana will directly download the file, and you need to specify the columns, which columns you want to display, and this plugin will automatically populate that for you, right? So this is a CSV. You can pass the URL directly. And similar way, there is an option you can put the inline CSV. So instead of URL, you can specify the inline. Suppose sometimes you may need need to hard code the data. So at that time you can use this as a like visualization tool, right? So this CSV panel supports multiple formats. Say for example, time series formats, table formats. Say for example, if you go here in the format, you can see it says time format and string and the metric. So you specify all the three, whatever the columns you need. Suppose if your CSV have 100 different columns, you just need to display 3 columns out of that. You can simply select what columns you need, right? And you can specify what format it is: string, number, timestamp. So then what we have in the timestamp, the plugin supports different types of timestamps. So you no need to worry about your timestamp in CSVs in different format. Say for example, here I showed you different formats. So this is a year, month, and date. So you can see multiple different formats here. So the plugin automatically parses the format for you and pick it up. So there are different formats. Even if your database have epoch time formats, you can select epoch, Unix, MX timestamp. So basically it does two things. So here year and population is a number and year is a timestamp. So it just visualize what it have. Right. So this is pretty simple. You can visualize any CSV and you can convert. You can on top of the CSV, you can use transformations to visualize whatever the format you need. Right. In similar way how we are scrapping CSV, we can also do the JSON. Right. Say for example, this one. This is just getting data from this URL. So you see an array of objects. So what you want to do is you want to visualize the title, the completed, whatever things, right? So it automatically picks up. Again, it follows the same convention: string, number, timestamps. Right? So you can have the inline stuff as well. So say this one. Okay. So this one you see some inline JSON. Just you can just try different things if you want hardcore. So we have two options: URL and inline. And again, you can see here CSV, JSON. There are different options also there. Okay. So next option I want to show you is the HTML, the GraphQL format. There's a similar way how we are scrapping the JSON. We can also scrap the GraphQL formats. You just need to pass the URL and you need to specify the column names. The only difference here will be if you click the advanced option, you will see it will be a post method and you will be posting the actual body of that. So you can do get and post methods. So you can actually do the GraphQL stuff. So say for example, this URL, this is the GraphQL endpoint. So I just pasted the URL, and if you run this, you will get the result in this format. So what we want to do is we want to visualize the countries. So it is inside the data countries, and the column names are name, continent.name. So here in the panel, what we specified is data.countries as our root URL. Then you have the column specified, okay, name, which is equivalent to the name column. Then continent, which is nothing but continent.name. If you see the JSON, it is just continent.name. So that's how we are specifying the format, how we want to display. Right? So you can think, suppose if you have some graphical endpoint which exposes some time series format, you can utilize that. Right? Any GraphQL this will be supporting, and this is the GraphQL. And similar way how we are doing the other CSV JSON, this also capable of scrapping the HTML web pages. Say for example, this page is coming from the Grafana website. Okay, one second. Okay, say this is the Grafana team website. Here we have the list of Grafana members. Maybe what I can do is just I can do inspect, and you will get the corresponding HTML element. So what I will be doing is, so you can see this is a list of users we want to display. So what we can do is just copy the selector. So copy the selector. Then if you go to the HTML, so here what we did is, so what we did is we just give the URL, and then the whatever the selector we selected, just put it here. So it knows, okay, this is my root data for each row, and then each row will have what columns you want to display. Say for example, so here you see a different things that the name is under H4. So you can consider H4 as selector. Then we have a title is under team underscore title. So that's how we specify, okay, H4 is my member, then title is my team title. So this is a CSS selector you can specify, or you can also put any selector like ID or class selectors. So this is how you scrap the HTML pages. In similar way, this page shows scrapping from Wikipedia. But the problem is Wikipedia will block you. Suppose if you, due to the cars restriction, it will block you. So you need to use some proxies like Cars Anywhere, or you can spin up your own proxies. Say for example, I'm just proxying that. If you go to the Wikipedia page, so this is the Wikipedia page. You have a nice table here. So we are just reproducing the table in the Grafana stats panel format, right? So we specified the root selector and the child selector. So we need we specify which column you want to display. You just select the number and just put the CSS selector, whatever the selector you need, you just specify. So this is how this scrapping works. And then okay, so then the HTML in similar way, it's a GitHub API. So we are directly calling the GitHub API using GraphQL example. We have a data source created for this with authentication specified. I will go through you shortly. You can see this is Grafana GraphQL schema. Also, if you expand, you will see this is the body we want to collect. So again, it have nice Grafana variables, and you can specify all the strings, whatever the field you want, you can display that, right? So for example, this one Grafana, we have variables. So here this panel shows all the issues with the Grafana low-key. So if you change the Grafana, so you will get all the details about the Grafana, all the issues in the Grafana. We do, Grafana do have GitHub stats they recently announced, but this plugin is just like added sugar. You can customize according to whatever the needs. You can filter your fields, but it does have its own limitations, the GitHub API limitations. But for the simple use cases, this will do the trick, right? This is how the API works, and we also have other things like some added sugar. So you can do like random walk and all other series. Say for example, if you need a random walk series, you can select as a series and you can do that. Okay, if you need a 10 series, just put 10. Then say for example, if you need a server series, server 1, server 2, you can put aliases, and this will take care. Again, here you can see the last one. So you can specify the series index. Suppose if your index to be middle of something, you can put like the server 1, server 2. Like this is the series with the random walk. In same way, you suppose sometimes you may need put some flat lines and other mathematical things. So at the time, what you can do is you can use some mathematical expressions here. So you just select series here. Then instead of random walk, you select expression and put the mathematical expression. So absolute value of sine, whatever the index degree, and the series index. So this will produce some nice graphs. So here you can see two things: sine wave, and cos wave, right? So this produces a nice heart kind of expression here. Then the rainbow, similar way rainbow goes like this. So sine wave, like index of series index and the value index. So we produce a nice rainbow. So this is how I made this, the other chart you can see. So this is, so this graph again is made of on top of the similar stuff. Okay, so this is about the data source. And if you go to the data source configuration, so the Infinity, it's pretty simple configuration. Just give the name and mode as basic mode. Suppose if you don't want any authenticated stuff, right? You just give basic. Suppose in case if you need any authentication, what we'll do is just select the advanced mode and give the credentials here. So with advanced mode, we support only one domain. But with basic mode, you have the ability to specify any domains in the panel itself, right? So similar way, if you see GitHub, so we have provided the API token here. It just works. Then we do have one more feature in the Infinity data source. It's called the provision queries. Say for example, sometimes you may need to reuse the queries in multiple places, right? So at that time, what we'll do is we can add the query, the admins can add the queries here itself. Suppose if the query is used multiple places, sometimes you may need some hard-coded CSV data like variable set. You can define here and you can bring it as a variable in your Grafana. Right? So you can put the same all the formats here. You can specify. Then in the dashboard, if you go to the dashboard, Infinity dashboard, how do you use? So instead of specifying the format, you choose the global query option here. Then global query will give you all the queries configured with that particular data source. This is how we use shared queries. It's a bit of hack, but I don't know what Grafana may come up with some different idea. But this is just a workaround. You can use shared queries if you are using same queries across multiple data sources. So,
thank you. I think that we need to go on to the next speaker. Do you have any final things that you want to
just
say?
2 minutes. Okay, the final things I want to show you is it's whatever I showed is just the Infinity data source. In similar way, we do have one more data source called Infinity Panel. So this Infinity Panel uses the Vega Grammar API. So with the Vega Grammar API, you can visualize the time series data in any format you want. So this is how the Infinity Panel works. Again, the data. So this, if you look at the GitHub, it have some examples and how to use this panel. We do have examples here. So for example, here we do the time series as so same data. Visualized in different format. So with using the repeat queries. So you can see this is shared queries we are using. So use shared queries. So we use same data visualized in multiple different formats you can use. That's it, Marcus. I have.
Yeah, cool. I don't think we have much time for questions, but if you do have any question for Sriram, please post it in the chat. And I think that we'll move on to Jeremy, right? Do you have your demo set up?
Sure.
Yeah, awesome. I think, yeah, exactly. Cool, awesome. So I know that Sriram, you must have worked on that for a while, and I think Jeremy has been working on his diagram panel for a bit as well, right? You've just moved it to React, right?
Right. Yeah. So the first version, I think I was an early adopter with Grafana plugin development. It's been several years. I created an Angular plugin based on, I don't know if you're familiar with the Mermaid.js library, but it allows you to create diagrams using a syntax that's unique to this library, but it gives you all kinds of different options here. So you've got top-down graphs, sequence diagrams, Gantt charts, and even class diagrams now, which is pretty interesting. The class diagrams, I like to monitor, performance of my applications. I use a lot of Java, and so we do instrumentation with the classes. So that opens up a unique monitoring of the internal components of the application that we could do in here. But this is the Grafana, or the diagram plugin. This is how it looked kind of out of the box here. I'll edit the plugin. Or actually, I guess it doesn't have any in data sources, but so it comes like this when you initialize it. And if you create just create a random walk here. We'll call it A series. And if you notice over here in the Mermaid syntax, A series is the name of that node. And so it matches the metric to the diagram node and then applies that value on the node itself. So we could add a couple more. It picks it up there. You've got all of the standard diagram syntax. So if you wanted to use, say, like an alias, and then also use like these modifiers. So you've got rounded box, or you could do like a square box. There's other shapes you could do. And then you can even modify like the node itself. So nice little error. If I remember the syntax. Okay, yeah. So you can name the links, and this is kind of like maybe a traffic diagram, right, or a weather map. And then something interesting I just want to talk about, like the migration. So going from 6 to 7, it was interesting because you got these new standard field options. And before, in the old version of the plugin, I had to write all of the threshold and overrides, series overrides. All that stuff was code in the plugin itself. But with the new standard values, the standard field options, I was able to take advantage of that and remove a lot of that code. And so this configuration supports that. So if we want to, let's change the threshold, for example. And then override that.
Just curious, could you generate nodes from data as well? I mean, if you, for example, if you have like a service, like a whole service fleet, to create all the interconnections and.
Yes, so there is an option in the old version of the plugin. It's not in this one yet, but there's a source option, so you can get the instead of getting the definition from this Mermaid box here, you could use a URL to get the definition of the diagram. And so a lot of folks have used that to call a web service, and then that JSON, or I'm sorry, not the JSON, but the Mermaid syntax is actually generated on a server somewhere. And so then it uses that, and then the metric values are matched up. But I've wondered about generating it from the data source itself inside of the panel. The problem is that the relationships are usually pretty specific in here. But if you had a data source that maybe used some sort of a hierarchical naming pattern or tags, then you could generate like the diagram definition itself within here.
It feels like at least many-to-one and one-to-many relationships could work, right? If one of these returned a list of values or like rows of values.
Yeah, that would be a good enhancement for sure.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, go on.
Yep. So yeah, so all these overrides per field, it works just as typical panels. So that was pretty nice being able to leverage this and a lot of the value formatting. So there was a lot of code in the old plugin that used value formatting, but it's much easier. The code was simplified. It was a little more verbose just to leverage all of the code, but also like I'm pretty new at React, so that was a learning experience for me. There's some other options in here. Right now, the legend just turns off and on. We've lost a few features moving to this new version, just because I haven't rewritten them yet. But another cool thing is this composite. So if you want to see maybe like this box here should be a combination of a couple different metrics or a series of metrics, and you just want to see the worst one, then you can create a composite metric. And so, for example, we'll add the A series and the B series, and we'll just call this composite. And so in the definition itself, let's see, we'll connect the A series to composite. And the B series to composite. So we're gonna have a composite series, and it's showing, now it's showing the worst of those two. So we've got 47 and 78. And then you could, if you want to show the lowest metric, you just check that box and it shows the lowest one. And it honors the field overrides for each of those. So if you want to use, if one of those metric values is more sensitive or something, you know, however, whatever, you might want to look at it. Oh, but this one's gold, so it's still going to show gold. So that's pretty interesting using the composite. You can combine however many fields you've got, you can combine that. Another thing that I used at a previous job was we like to monitor kind of like the flow of an application. And so we'd have typically like, I don't know, like a load balancer, a couple web servers, app servers, and database. So you could line out your infrastructure here as a diagram and then pull back the metrics for those specific components. Right, and you can see how you could design that out. And this helped, in my experience, this helped a lot showing the executives, because they don't really, sometimes they don't understand the diagrams and, or the charts and tables and things about how it actually affects the infrastructure. But if you can show them like an infrastructure diagram and then show them that this performance over here is bad, so maybe downstream functions could be impacted by that. It conveys a lot of information with a short glance. And then there's just some features here about overriding the style. So it is aware of the Grafana theme that's selected. So if you want to change some of the options for this specific theme, you can use that. and then this would save for that particular theme. And if you wanted to change it for the light theme, you could make those modifications here. And then you could actually apply specifically CSS styles that are applied onto this diagram after the rest of the styles are applied.
How would you use that? I'm just curious, like with the custom CSS, what would you like to do that's not possible otherwise?
So there was a question on one of the GitHub issue. I don't remember what they were trying to do, but it was best done through a CSS style. I can't remember what it was now, but you know, you could grab that selector, say in here, and drop that in. I think it was something to do with the specific color of one link. I can't remember now, but it gives you kind of that granular overriding.
Yeah.
And that's really all there is to it. I mean, this is a pretty simple plugin right now.
How is it different from flowcharting plugin?
I've seen that. I think I know which one you're talking about. There's that uses not Lucid, but what's the other? There's another chart, open source or online chart application. I don't remember what it's called, but I'm not real familiar with it, so I couldn't really tell you too much about it. I know that this, this specifically is using the Mermaid.js library, so that's syntax. I think that other plugin uses another syntax under the hood.
It looks like they're using draw.io, which is like a SAS, I think. Whereas but I think whereas your have like the definition in Grafana rather,
right.
where I think that they have the definition in draw.io. I assume. I haven't actually been able to play with it.
Okay, because it's really interesting when you have different state machine or different interfaces, right? And you can actually pull the data, get the data, see the state of that, and show it in Grafana.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah, there's actually there's somebody reached out to me from I don't know if you're familiar with Commanda or their new ZB product, but looking at like the state of a business process, pulling that definition into here and using that amidst the state machine, like you said. So that would be interesting to see how many tasks are active for a particular step in that process.
Right.
Yeah, really cool. And again, if you have any more questions for Jeremy, just post them in the chat. And I think that we have our last demo. I'm just to throw this out there. I'm just gonna stay here for as long as you want to chat. So if you want to stick around afterwards, can totally do that. But let's do the final demo first. Hit it.
I think you can hear me and see my screen, I hope. Okay. Yeah, for our clients, we are using several charts and Grafana visualizations all over the place. But on the production floor, we needed something to check for the most important errors or the highest priority events that were occurring. So and this was mainly done by the Pareto chart. So you can actually set a percentage where you say, okay, everything within this percentage, it's important for me at this moment. and this will have the highest priority. And when that is finished or done or processed, then you go to the next one. So, and this line shows you the curve of where you at certain positions. So this is a graph. This is, for example, with the random walk, you have with time series, samples with time series, and it's basically when you open, you just set a data source, and then you can set your vital few value in percentage. In this particular case, it's 20%. So everything within the 20% range is marked as green. And if you hover, you will get the details of that particular event. And then you have some basic visualization options, numbers of decimals, and that kind of stuff, the bar paddings, and stuff. This one is a small one, so you have this click bar, copy or not label. But when you configure it, then you see over all your machines how they are performing and what the most important issues are that you have to focus on. And this is, for example, a real-time production example. So we see here that we have several machines, and this is actually machines that are providing data with stoppage information. So in here we can see all kinds of machines that stopped or had a minor stop, and what the message was on that one, and the percentage and the sum of occurrence. So this gives you a pretty quick overview of your whole production line, and you can see what the important issues are on that specific line, because you have with our client, you have like hundreds of lines all over the world, and you want to keep track of them, how they are doing. So this gives you a quick way of doing that. And also, forgot about that, but sometimes you want to zoom in, etc. So this gives you also a nice possibility to zoom and pan. So yeah, that's what my demo is all about. So if you have any questions, then.
So I'm sorry. Could you explain what the height of in your example with the machine faults? Could you explain what the height of each bar represents?
Yeah. For example, this has 212 times the times this fault. What appears? It's in Polish, and I don't understand that, but it says that this amount of errors occurred of that particular message. So here we see we had, for example, 212 times alarm 1 going off. And
okay,
then,
so it's like occurrences of log lines, for example.
Exactly, and then you have the other ones too. So the operational staff knows exactly from, this is for this week, I need to focus on these error messages. And then he focuses on, for example, the first one, and that one says alarm 1. So high temperature, for example, and then they fix that. And then this graph changes, and then they focus on the next error message, because there are a lot of error messages. I have a small date range now, but they have thousands of minor, major messages that occur. So they really need to focus on which error they need to focus on, and that is kind of hard if you have a lot of messages. So this gives you a quick insight to the data and how to handle that. that's it.
I have one last question, if you don't mind. I was wondering about what are you using to draw the chart? Because I don't. Yeah, go on.
That's D3, and then React.
Which one?
D3.js is the graph library I'm using for this, and it's based on, yeah, in combination with React that we're using for plugins. So that's
okay. So it's all SVGs basically.
Those are all SVGs.
Oh, okay. Cool. Thank you. Thank all of you. For those of you who have to drop off at 1 hour, thank you for having us, or thank you for joining us rather. And yeah, well, first off, awesome demos, all of you. I'm really cool to see. I mean, I've been reviewing a few of these, but it's really cool to actually see how it's being used by the authors. So really cool to see that. And yeah, if you have anything else you want to demo in the next community call, reach out to me. Yeah, I don't have much else to add, but again, I'll stick around if you want to discuss something more. But I know that in this day and age, we're all busy people, so I understand if you have a meeting to catch.
So I wanna thank the Grafana Labs team also for moving towards React, because that enabled a lot of things. I guess I was looking from far to when all was Angular, but now with React, it's kind of easier to create stuff, because it was something like 2 or 3 weeks that I really touched Grafana and did any of the plugins stuff, but it looks really great. So keep up the good work.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we moved to, or the team decided to move towards React because at least at the time, they felt that you know, Angular was losing a little steam, and then React was kind of the contender as well. But when we actually started migrating stuff, we realized that it was much faster. Like, we got a much faster version of Grafana after moving to React, or at least like a lot of the components. Obviously, we still have a lot to migrate. A lot of parts of Grafana is still Angular, but we're slowly moving to move it out. I think that one major last part is the graph. And you'd think that that's the first thing that you migrate, but it's actually a really complicated piece of component, you know. So, but we're working on it right now, and hopefully we'll get something sorted out. Hopefully, I'm trying to get it so that we really make it into a reusable component, because I mean, a lot of people want to use graphs, you know, time series graphs. So hopefully that will end up as a React component in the UI package, if you haven't seen that already. But yeah, I mean, React, what I kind of like about it is that you can start developing these components that we can sort of share with each other as well. I'm not too experienced with Angular, but I'm not sure that was possible in the same way. I don't know if you and Jeremy, you've got experience with both. If you can tell any difference.
Yeah, it was interesting in Angular. I mean, I used the same kind of methods where you package it up as like a UMD or module, and it was interesting. I think it is easier in React though, like just kind of debugging some of those stuff. And I've had an interesting project for the last few weeks here. I ripped off the Grafana UI package and the toolkit, and I've been actually using that in my own content management system. I'm building a plugin system based off the Grafana platform because I've got some experience with it, and I just really like the way it was set up. And so I've actually got it working. And we talked about using app plugins earlier. I've got React app plugins working in my new platform. So that was pretty exciting. And you know, I'm using Java on the back end, but so it's a little different. But I tell you, it was interesting taking the UI library and everything else and ripping out all the Angular, because I pulled all the Angular out and all the time series stuff out. So you can imagine there's a lot of.
I definitely didn't see that one coming, but hey, really cool to see being used for other stuff as well.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm kind of curious if you, I mean, especially you, Jeremy, but the others of you as well. I mean, going from, you know, having a Angular plugin and then moving to the React, did you like switch over gradually, or did you just say, heck, just start afresh and then move things
I just whacked
over?
I just did the whole thing. I started a project several months ago to try to move to my React slowly, and I didn't like I didn't like the interaction that I would have to do between Angular and React, so I just scrapped and rewrote the whole thing in React from scratch.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I've been seeing as well. That people tend to just create a new plugin and then just move things over slowly. Unfortunately, that's not possible with Grafana itself. So we had to create, I mean, I feel you on that. We had to create that glue, you know, to talk between Angular and React, and it's not pretty.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed, like when I was rewriting a lot of the front ends from Grafana, is that there's like the bridge service, and there's some of these other services that make Angular, because the routing, especially the routing, is different between React and Angular. And so there's Angular routes, and then you're pushing that into the state in Redux.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of rewiring I had to do to manage that process. But
yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually something, you know, we saw the app plugin earlier. That's something that we're, you know, trying to fix. That is like one of the last pieces to really make app plugins work is the routing, because right now it's to you know, you have that tab navigation for an app plugin, but it's really just, you know, changing a query parameter and then, you know, reloading the page. So it's, you know, it's not really using the React router right now, which is something that we would want to, because right now you're only able to have, you know, the /a/ and then the ID of the plugin. But we hopefully would be able to, with the React router, to add like multiple path segments after that, because that's not really possible. I'm sorry?
I guess somebody's been working on it, because I did see some code in there about some paths that use /page and then / like a parameter, right?
Yeah.
I had some difficulty. I guess it's not really working yet. So I ripped it out and I used the same thing. I used query strings for the tag.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
The goal is to swap that out for routing.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but we definitely want to start integrating the React router, and hopefully we can do some fun stuff with that.
So what I've done as a prototype is my plugin. When my plugin is loaded into the app, I take those navigation items and I just create them as new routes. Like I dynamically add routes to the app, to the main app, based on the plugin app.
Mm-hmm.
So just combining those routes, and it's
okay.
to work. But
I guess you're using the Angular framework for your.
Yeah, no Angular.
Yeah, no Angular for your app plugins.
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
I ripped all the Angular stuff out.
How did you find the React support for app plugins?
It was interesting. It wasn't as difficult as I thought. It was really those, like I said, the bridge service with the routing. That was the problematic piece. So I just ended up using the query strings as, and then I created like an app root, or a component basically to hold the app. And then it just looks at the path. If the path is the same, then
Gotcha.
it, you know, it doesn't re-render the whole bang. But it's interesting. But yeah, the app plugin or the it's just the app plugins. Anyway, I look to see if it's got navigations, essentially just like a route, a listed route. And if it does have a route, then I add that to the existing routes.
So, I mean, if you haven't seen it already, hang on. See if I can post some links in here. So, as I mentioned, I'm kind of working on a tutorial for app plugins, and I would love to get your input, both you and Mikhail. And let's see if I can find the actual.
Yeah, actually, I did use. I think I used your example here.
Yeah, it's not like originally it wasn't made for you know, as a starter, but we're turning it into a starter plugin. So there's a few pieces that I know the team is, you know, kind of regretting, or at least they want to start improving a few of these pieces in that simple app plugin. But I'll just add another link here. I've shared this with you as well, Mikhail, so I think you have it already, but there is a draft tutorial in the tutorials repository for app plugins. It's really just a draft, and I'm kind of adding things as I learn myself. But if you do have any experience of, and like if you thought that some things were more difficult than others, please, you know, add some comments, and I'd love to integrate them.
Now this new tutorial looks great, and I started with simple app plugin as well, but I mean, you have to look into with simple app plugins and more synthetic monitoring app we talked about. There is some of them done by Brian as well, who started to build applications. So it's a great resource as well. The problem they're in React. So you kind of have to go everywhere and find what works for you. Practice with it a lot. It's
sorry about that.
Great learning experience. Talking about with routes, I found there is a problem when you add with pages in plugin.json with a leading slash. So it's kind of work as the absolute path. Unfortunately, it's great that Grafana can be installed in some subfolder, right, on a specific server. And this is something I still have to practice with. You have to understand where you have to have this leading slash, where it does not. But when you actually click on the tab in an app, it doesn't work with the subfolders and things like that. So it's just something you have to be QA'd properly.
Yeah.
With the parsing queries. But it doesn't work in my application. Properly.
Okay. I mean, if you do run into something like that, please create an issue and ping me, and I'll get the right people on it.
Yes, because you're changing it to React, so there is no problem making sense to fix it right anymore. But we'll see how it's going to be in React.
Yeah, yeah. You had something, Jeremy.
I was just saying, like, I ran into the same issue, and I think what I needed to do was the way I've temporarily solved it. I grabbed the path from the runtime, right, and I prefix all the paths that I use in my app plugin with that current path. But it's still pretty hacky, and it breaks. You've got to use the right. There's some places where you need a leading slash and some places that you don't. So I've got to resolve all those problems.
Yeah.
If you take a look at this tutorial by Marcus, he actually doesn't use the path variable. He created himself the path. It's not a variable even, because so maybe it's a good way, but still. Yeah. I mean, if you have a path, you're supposed to use it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure.
That doesn't work.
Cool. Who's working on the toolkit?
I'm sorry?
The toolkit. Who works on that one?
So multiple people, but I think mostly Dominic, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Did you have a question on?
I'm just interested in it because I started I started tearing apart, and I've modified some things on it. Trying to see if I don't know if I can really contribute back to it or not. But there's another library that I've been using. I switched everything also from Yarn workspaces to Rush.js. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it's pretty interesting the way that you create commands. You can do bulk commands, or where you apply the command to every sub project. So you can add your testing and things up at the top level. But it doesn't use a root project, kind of like the way Yarn workspaces use, especially with a toolkit. There's like this root project with dependencies, and so the dependency management. I ran into some problems with the way that the Grafana repo is set up. And so anyway, I switched to Rush.js, and it worked pretty well. But then I came across this library, this TS command. I think it's called TS command line. But I think it'd be really useful in the Grafana toolkit, just to simplify some of the commands. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure if Dominic knows about it, so feel free to ping him on Slack.
Okay.
I think he's the best person to ask. I'm hoping to start contributing to it as well, but not quite there yet.
I think it's really cool. It saved me some time for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I've been struggling a lot with Webpack and all the other ones as well. So I was just pleasantly surprised when I started using Toolkit myself. Actually, like speaking of Grafana Toolkit, I might. So actually today and yesterday as well, I've been starting to experiment with plugin signing, and that's actually now. You're actually able to sign your plugins right now. It's still in Canary, but you can do it as a community author. So what we've added is that in Grafana Toolkit, in the Canary release, there is a new command called sign. And what that does is that it actually goes to the grafana.com API, and it gets a verification or a key from the Grafana API, and then it creates this manifest file, and then you just create your plugin as you usually do. But so that little file there is what it's gonna make it work. So the command is there in Grafana Toolkit. There is some extra work you need to do, and I think maybe I can show a little bit. If you.
It's supported for backend plugins as well, right? For all of them.
Yes, that's the idea of it. Like it's mostly for backend plugins, but we want to do it with front end plugins as well. But yeah, it's something that we're kind of talking back and forth, because this is potentially going to, eventually we want to start running Grafana without any unsigned plugins. So at some point we want to stop loading unsigned plugins. So there's going to be some work to get all the plugins that we have over and sign them, and start signing them as we go along. So that's going to be a major work. And I think, to be honest, with the community plugins, I think it's relatively easy. We could potentially just get all of them and sign them, but for private plugins, it's more of a challenge. If you have companies writing plugins themselves, we can't really do that. So that's something you're going to see some warnings in upcoming Grafana versions about this plugin is not signed yet. And yeah, see if I can show you something.
Marcus, does that mean we can't no longer use unsigned plugins if it's a private plugin itself?
Yeah, so yeah, what we're looking at is, you can enable development mode in Grafana, and then you will still be able to load unsigned plugins, because if you're developing a plugin, you don't want to keep signing it on each build, right? So if you enable development mode, you will be able to run unsigned plugins, but in the production installation, it's not going to be possible. With that being said, we don't know exactly when we will enable this, and we're going to make sure to be super, clear about you have to do this, and we won't flip the switch until enough people have, moved over. But yeah, it's a challenge. See if I think I can come in here. So I believe you have the admin page for your grafana.com accounts that you've been publishing plugins for. So I believe you're able to go in here. So at admin.grafana.com/org/your username. And if you go to this sharing tab here, you can see your, feel free to navigate here and see if you can see it. And then you should be able to see something like this. Can someone verify? Is someone?
We cannot access to admin. It's once a Google account, and then you say you don't have an access if I connect with my.
Okay, gotcha. Well, so the idea is that you have like something called, a signature level. And that's the level of which you're going to be signing your plugins on. And then here you're gonna have like the if they're actually signed or not. But yeah, so each plugin needs to be, enabled for which level is going to be signed, if it's a community plugin, if it's a private, if it's a Grafana Labs, and so on. So yeah, that's something we need to be doing first. So if you can't access it, then I can flip that for you. Yeah, I mean, I will start publishing things in the plugins channel on Slack. Once I have more details on how to do this, I will hopefully be writing some documentation for this. Yeah, in the coming near future.
To test it, because I want to submit a new version of the data source. I need to sign it again. I can ask Brian to do it, or I can try to do it myself. Yeah. And if you can allow us the access to this admin page, it would be great. Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
I also get you don't have access.
Okay, it might actually be something that's we're not exposing at this point. So, yeah, I'll get back to you on that. See, I thought you had access actually, but yeah. So things are happening. I'm actually working on a GitHub action to do this. So hopefully, so the idea is that you tag a release, and then that triggers a GitHub action that builds the plugin, signs it, and then creates, a checksum, and then it creates a release asset on that GitHub release. And then you can submit that to the plugin repository. That's the general idea. For partner plugins or commercial plugins, I'm not sure exactly how the workflow is going to be. But yeah, more details coming.
Right, we can do another session like we did for signing plugins.
Yeah, for sure.
About how to build it properly.
Yeah, there's going to be more of this.
Can I ask a different question if anybody has anything else? It's actually not related to signing, something else I'm working on. When you retrieve your data from data source and you get data in multiple and different types, like a string or numbers, right? And as I understand, if one of the data fields, one of the columns is a timestamp. Time, it's actually Grafana understand that it's a chart, right, compared to the table. can we change it on the fly, the data type, like convert it from number to time?
So you're saying in a panel, is that what you're saying? When you get the response back from the data source, you're gonna get a data frame back.
Yeah, it's coming from the numbers of string, but sometimes these numbers can represent seconds, right, or milliseconds.
Yeah.
And I cannot show it in graph. It's saying to me that it's a table.
Yeah, gotcha. I'm not sure we have any like transformations to change the type of column or fields in a data frame. I'm not aware of that.
I think it will be useful, this kind of transformation. You can actually, because now with transformation, you can do different things, change labels, right? Move to rows or columns, reduce, organize, and change the data type. It will be great.
So I guess the question is why the data source is not returning the right type to begin with.
I mean, for me, it's one of the issue open to one of the developers. It's a returning hash, and hash, you never know what you store there. So this is why I don't do this conversion. It's not like a data time series data. It's a hash you can store there. So I can actually check, oh, it looks like a milliseconds, probably it's a time, but it will be great if we can have this kind of transformation.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have that right now. But I mean, transformation is something we introduced in 7.0, and the way I see it is just gonna expand. You know, more transformation are gonna come. But
is it something we can ask for, open an issue?
Oh yeah,
because
for sure.
I talked with Ryan about it a long time ago, and he told me that you can actually in data source you can return specific data types, and it's a new feature in version 7. But if you can actually change it on the front end, it will be very useful. Yeah,
I mean, a transformation that would take transform a type. I mean, definitely open up an issue and do a feature request. But other than that, you could check out the transformations and see if it's. I haven't actually looked at the code myself on the transformations yet, but if it's a reasonable interface, you could look at into implementing yourself as well.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Yeah,
maybe there is a solution for that.
Yeah. Of course, there's going to be a level of error handling there. Like what if the field is not you're not able to parse the integer, for example.
Right.
Should you just drop the value or? Yeah, well, it's interesting.
Okay. Because sometimes you return string and it's a number, stats cannot properly parse it, summarize it, right? So it will be interesting to have this kind of conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Marcus, you're aware of any monorepo for plugins? Say, for example, if I'm authoring multiple plugins, so I want to share some code. So preferably I want to have it in a monorepo. One succeeded with that.
So I guess the main issue right now is that to publish a plugin, the plugin needs to be its own repository. I guess that's what you're asking.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So if you were able to publish a plugin without actually like having a one-to-one connection with or relationship with the repository, that would enable you to do a monorepo.
But I guess recent publication allows you to specify that download links and other things, right? So
yeah. So with the new the new idea we have for publishing plugins, you simply give us a URL to the zip archive with your plugin. So if you want to, you can you can create a release on, let's say you have a monorepo with 5 plugins, and when you do a release, you create a release on GitHub that contains a zip archive for all 5. And then you could just ask us to publish, you give us the URL for each plugin, and then the checksum, and you need to sign them, all of them as well. But yeah, that would be possible with the new way of publishing plugins, for sure.
But that's understandable. But the hardest part is how the Grafana toolkit will work with the monorepos, because I don't think anyone have done this before.
My first instinct that would be like Yarn workspaces, like something like Jeremy mentioned, but I don't know off my top of my head.
Yeah, that's where I ran into some problems actually, because I have a mono repo for that CMS, and I have plugins that panel plugins that I'm building inside of that repo, but I want to publish them separately, and then also as they have to build differently because they need to be linked. You know, if I'm updating the toolkit, then plugins need to use the most updated version of the toolkit, which is local. And so linking, that I ran into some problems with Yarn workspaces, but the Rush.js is working pretty well.
Rush.js.
Rush.js, it's the Rush stack. It's pretty interesting. It's a Microsoft project.
Okay. I mean, I would really be excited if Yarn workspaces end up, like, if we could make changes so it did work. I think because we're using Yarn, so it would be nice if we could just leverage that. Right. Do you think that you'd be able to formulate like an issue on the problems that you ran into?
Oh, me?
Yeah. You might not remember.
If I remember the details.
Yeah, no, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, so I played with it for a whole day. Probably spent 12 or 13 hours on it, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna try this other.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Well, if you do, or CRM, if you try out Yarn workspaces and Grafana toolkit is not working, then let me know. I'll see if I can ask around. Yeah. Because that would be really cool if we could do something like that.
Another thing that I'm trying to implement is having panels provided in an app plugin. So an app plugin, in some of my use cases, I need to be able to provide a specific panel to use with that app, and so I'm embedding panel plugin, or basically panel plugins within the app, and then load the app in the front end plus the panel plugins. Right? So it dynamically loads the panel plugins. I don't know if that's on the radar for the app plugins in Grafana or not, but it's something that I'm finding useful.
I mean, maybe I misunderstood you, but you can already now, if you create a panel plugin inside your app plugin, if you run Grafana toolkit build on the root level, then the panel will be included in that app plugin.
The panel is included. Oh, okay. I missed that. I must have missed that then.
But it's built as like a bundle and shipped together. But I mean that obviously that won't work if you're say that your app plugin relies on a already published plugin somewhere, like a external plugin that someone else wrote. Then you would have to put the dependency in the plugin.json file. Unfortunately, that doesn't actually do anything other than just displaying it in Grafana. So if you specify in the plugin.json that your app plugin requires the world map plugin, for example, it won't get installed, with that plugin. It will just say that this requires world map. But if you I think actually you can put it in any subdirectory. If when the app plugin builds, I think it will actually look through recursively for all subdirectories with a plugin.json file and bundle that together with the app plugin.
Yeah, that's correct. If you put panels, specifying plugin JSON, you can put data sources as well and dashboards. and it's mixed all together in Pocket. I saw some problems that if you have a plugin JSON for the panel inside application, it's not actually updating version and the date when it's actually packaged. So it's something I have to look for. Maybe Marcus, we can take a look at as well. Maybe something we can develop. Actually, I want to comment about dependency. So you can actually put dependency, and because we release data source first and application we are doing right now, data source, I wanted to have it separate from application. So I put it as a dependency. And when I test, now I submitted it to the repository, and I want to test it how it will work. If you put your own URL in somewhere in public internet, and with my Redis app depends on my Redis data source, it's actually looping around and it's not able to start. It's trying to get with Redis data source from the URL I want to use the Redis app, and it doesn't work. So it's like a looping and cannot start Grafana even. So I think it's still trying to do that, but it doesn't work with a custom URL. And I want to try it, what's happened with an official repository. Did it, Marks, make sense?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow. Like, where would you put that URL?
So I have my Redis app, right? I created a distribution for that. I put it on my custom URL on my external website, so I can load it somewhere and try it, right? To see it actually works. Yeah. So I put it somewhere in my redislab.com/ and this is a zip file. Mm-hmm. So it's trying to get it, and it sees the plugins dependency for Redis data source, and looks like it's trying to get it from the same place, same URL. I don't know. It's like looping around.
So it's actually trying to get the plugin.
It tries it, but it doesn't work.
That's not what I've been told. So that's quite interesting. That it does actually try to get it, but I'll write that down because I want to know that.
It's one of the issues we have to look for as well. So this is why I want to publish it and see if it's actually work from repository when everything is available for Grafana, but with a custom URL doesn't work for me. Okay. It's looping and it's not going anywhere. There was definitely a learning curve how actually make the application plugin works, and there are multiple workarounds you have to do with this queries, right? Pass, the way how you package it, still what you have to provide for the panels, with plugin JSON, how to properly build it.
Yeah.
Dashboard, this is what we recently discussed, that you can only import all the dashboards, not like one by one, right? Another thing.
Yeah.
And what I found as well, if you have a dashboard, you to import them in the plugins or application, you have to export them globally, right? And it's tricky to export it globally sometimes. If you have all, and I had a problem. I had a variable with a data source, so I want my dashboard working with different data sources, and it didn't work for me because I have a multi-value and all option in this variable. So it's giving me some error. It cannot replace something. So, and yesterday I finally started to figure out that one of my dashboards with this variable works, another one does not. So what was the problem I created before? Well, then I understand, oh, you have to have variable with only single variable parameter, and it works suddenly. So there are many things which is missing, but it became better. Every day became better.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the internal products for Grafana Cloud are implemented as app plugins. So we're betting on app plugins ourselves. So I'm betting on, improvements being made as we continue to build it ourselves. But I don't think, there's not that many like app plugins in the wild at this point. So I totally understand that there's not much to learn and be inspired by. And it's actually not that many internally of Grafana that has been building app plugins as well. So I'm kind of running around asking, hassling the people that actually know a thing or two. But yeah, hopefully once the tutorial is done, we can start building a core competency in building app plugins. And then my hope is that once we get there, we can start writing more advanced guides as well for more specific things and we're going to find bugs in this because as I was saying, it's not something that's been heavily used as opposed to panel and data source plugins, for example. So yeah, keep the issues coming.
Yeah, unfortunately, I saw that you released this Composite Metric application recently. Unfortunately, it's not open source, right? So we cannot see what's actually inside there. It's not on GitHub, Grafana.
Which one?
Right?
Which one?
The Composite Metrics, your new application. It's a your new metrics application.
Oh yeah. No, it's private, I believe, right now.
Right. Actually, my idea is that I had my own Angular application before, and then when we started to work on that, we understand that we need the Grafana to display different metrics. So then and this is the way how we started to do with data source. So now for one of my internal application at Radius Labs, we use Angular frontend, backend, Node.js, and then Grafana to display different metrics. So when I started to work on another project, I started to look into that. Should I use the same Angular or React for a separate application and use Grafana for my metrics? And then I realized that Grafana is actually a great platform, and using this application, you can do anything with it using React, right? With the panels, data sources, with application, even the custom pages. So, and Grafana already have this infrastructure. It has a Docker, right? It has different ways how you can package it and deploy it. So it's actually great. Instead of developing separate application and spend your time on it, you can use Grafana platform, build what you need using the panels application, data sources, and it's easy. And already many of our customers already use Grafana or Grafana Enterprise. So it's actually easier to distribute it, and our customers started to use it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of, let's say that I'm developing a database as a service, and I can just ship my data source plugin. I can ship some curated recommended dashboards, and I can even like provision my database instances right in Grafana. I mean, I think it's a pretty cool idea of, providing that full experience. But yeah, so like if you're writing a custom page, basically the whole Grafana, you click the icon in the side menu and you get like a React component that fills the entire, canvas of Grafana. So you're really free to do anything you like there. But yeah, I mean, I know we're working on, improving how requests are made. And I know there is some work being done to, because sometimes you, want to, we have this case where people want to use the proxy from their app plugin, right? But that's not really, it's
pretty
not,
cool. Actually,
yeah,
I like it.
But it's not super intuitive how to do that. It is possible. Like, let's say that you don't want to expose a data source plugin. Let's say that you have your Redis API, for example, for your for your platform. But so you might want to make requests to that API, but you don't want to show that as a data source because it's only the app that is really making those requests. I assume that your data source plugin is what makes those requests, right? And then
I'm working on separate enterprise plugin which interact with our cloud API and the REST API. Yeah. And we're using proxy. And we kind of, with the proxy, it's interesting. You can have authorization as a part of your plugin JSON. But at the same time, if you look how your Go data source works, you can see there is these parameters for basic authentication. And if you can actually pack it in your own data source on the front end side, you can actually reuse what you have on your backend. And and it's interesting. But what we do it right, I'm using my own path in the data source, and I kind of hide what is behind it. And you can use the tokens, right, with kind of attributes, but it's totally different discussion. But it's interesting. We can make it work, but it kind of have to be easier.
Yeah, it really has to. Okay, this was actually longer than I expected it to. Now, I have to drop off. But it was really cool chatting with all of you. Really cool to see what you're making.
Can I ask a quick question though?
Yeah, sure.
So for the client, we have a lot of dashboards, and now I didn't look into the app plugin, but now you're mentioning it, I was curious, but we were planning to create a tutorials kind of landscape where we fill in all of those pages with tutorials how to build their dashboard for themselves. So we kind of want them to build their own dashboards instead of us building them for them. Would this app plugin be such an application for that, or with all the ratings stuff from clients, so they can also rate the tutorials or the plugins that they are using? Would that be kind of an app plugin usage, or?
I don't see why it couldn't. My gut feeling is that we're already doing something similar, I think. We have a product called Easy Start, which is basically like a wizard that gets everything set up. If you're installing Grafana, you're likely going to have other data sources running. You have something for metrics, some for logs. But with the Easy Start, then you're getting like a package deal. So it's like a wizard you go through. And I think that you could be doing something similar where you have like a wizard where the customer gets to input a few values about their setup. And then when you click create, you create a dashboard for them based on those values. Does that sound roughly what you're looking for, or?
Kind of, but we try to give them full control. So it's not only set up and then they're done, but they also have engineers on the work floor, and they also want to change everything.
I mean, for sure, you can do if you're looking for like a tutorial platform, you could definitely implement just first step, do this, second step, do this, and then you can like implement the going back and forth or scrolling or whatever. So
then we pull all the dashboards into columns, etc. We have something like that, but we were thinking of like creating a separate kind of app. But now you mentioned the app plugin, maybe we can try something out with that. But I think we can.
Yeah, I can maybe explain a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it's like showing how it looks like. So yes, you have these pages, which is a part of your plugins, and this is what we discussed with Marcus, that it's React pages, and you can do anything there. You can reuse the same design patterns what Grafana has, or has your full screen. You can put anything, and you interacting with the Grafana API. You can create your own dashboards based on your input parameters. And when you create them, you can actually have your wizards, whatever you're looking for, as a dashboard, special dashboards in your menu as well. With CLI and overview, it's one of the dashboards which automatically got imported. But you can have as many as you want, and you can create them in your application itself, and interact with any Grafana API from it.
Exactly. That looks really great. Yeah. I will dive into that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there is no icon, so it doesn't look as good as the other one, right, Marcus? Yeah. But we are working on that.
Yes.
We could use pseudo CSS for that.
Oh yeah. Jeremy will hook us up.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was very helpful, guys. I have to.
Yeah.
I have another meeting already.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.